Hello, Who Dat Nation. We're live to talk about your New Orleans Saints. And man, oh man, it's Tuesday. You'd think we would have a little bit of a break from all the news, but nope, no breakage. It's all here. We're going to talk about it all. We're going to talk about the Chris Olave arrest. We're going to talk about the New Orleans Saints state of the franchise. I am going to dip my toe in the rumor mill. I never do that. I tend to avoid it, but we're going to do it anyway today. Because rumor has it, I'm going to explain both sides of rumor and not tell you that I believe in either side or one of them, but simply just, hey, here's your Saints news. Here's what's going on. It's wild. It's crazy. It's topsy. It's turvy. And that's just the Saints lately. That is just literally Saints news is holy crap. Now, I will say, if you're wondering about the New Orleans Saints and how they currently are across the league and how they currently are across everyone else, we're going to cover that as well, which I know nobody kind of wants to hear this right now, but the truth is the Saints are still in the literal thick of things. The Saints are actually not doing very bad. Is Juwan Johnson coming back? There's just so much. But before all that, let's get some Whodats to you, to those who are live. We appreciate all those of our live audience. TJ, Saints Garcia, Nikki DeFish. Whodat Confessional is me, by the way, going to try with the help of y'all. If y'all really want more short form content, I'm willing to give it a try. I need y'all to hit me up on the Discord. Moderators, share that out. And the Facebook page moderators, share that out. So we shall see. So we're going to go over that. But Whodat2992, Ras, Bart Simpson, Chemo Slice, Pickin' Ponies, the Antonio, K-Main, Shane, Omac, Gundam himself, Nikki, DeFish, Saints Garcia, everybody else, welcome into the show. Hope you've been enjoying it. We put out 2 film studies already this week. I hope you appreciate it. Really been trying to work hard for every single one of y'all because I love Whodat Nation. Y'all mean the world to me and all support for my family. And yeah, we're going to get into it. So here, let me just go ahead and give you the skinny on a couple of the big dramatic pieces. We're going to start with Chris Olave. Chris Olave was arrested going 70 mile per hour in a 35 mile per hour zone. Now, of course, the Kenner PD were just like ecstatic. This is something that they wait their entire lives for. Pull that man over, click it, ticket, baby. And of course, Chris Olave couldn't help but mention, hey, I play for the New Orleans Saints, which of course was followed by a very, very good old boy version of who gives a that doesn't mean a damn thing. So that is what it is. I'm not judging Chris Olave for that happening. I realize stuff happens, but Chris Olave being arrested obviously is going to play a little bit of a role here in the news cycle, as well as curious to see if anything happens long term. For example, if they do any type of reveal of breathalyzers and he was over the limit, and then it comes into an NFL conduct policy, because obviously the NFL only wants the best representatives in the league. So that happened. He was going 70 in a 35 zone on the 1700 block of Joanny Boulevard. And there you have it, Saints fans. Can it be something important? Can it be something completely nonsensical? Completely up to you to decide. And we'll actually grab a couple of Whodats and says, Pickin' Pony says, I don't think a Hellcat can even go 35. Loving the shade throwing in. Funny guy says, for sure, hold him accountable, but that cop was being goofy. Have to agree a little bit there. Funny guy says, Olave wasn't drunk. I wasn't trying to insinuate that he was, by the way. Simply going along the, hey, here's what to worry about if you're a Saints fan. Truthfully, I just think it was a young guy doing stupid stuff, which sadly has been an Olave theme lately. And I'm a big Olave supporter. I think that he's a 1,000-yard receiver. I think he'd be a star in this league. But, you know, just telling the guy that you work for the Saints as if that's going to get you off of a ticket, meh. And then the fact that he's coming off a few games where a lot of people are scrutinizing his effort. Look, it's just one of those things that the people who are against him are just getting ammo, and the people who are for him are having to defend him more. And I think that I wish that the New Orleans Saints was currently focused on football. That's not where we're at. Now, speaking of football news, one positive I have to lay out to Saints fans that I know many of you don't want to hear right now, but I'm going to give it to you anyway, because my goal and my job is to give you the news. Whether you like it, whether you hate it, it is the news, and it does matter. Your New Orleans Saints are currently only one game out of the division lead. The Atlanta Falcons are 4-3, Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 3-3, New Orleans Saints are 3-4, and the Carolina Panthers have yet to win a game at 0-6. With the New Orleans Saints coming up in their next upcoming matchup here, we've just completed Week 7. Congratulations to everybody. Yay, Week 7 in the books. Can't believe it's flying by so fast. But the Houston Texans, who the New Orleans Saints lost to, will be taking on the Panthers. The New Orleans Saints will be taking on the Indianapolis Colts. Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a tough matchup in Buffalo against the Buffalo Bills. And then the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Tennessee Titans, who will be without safety Bayard because they traded Bayard to the Eagles. I feel like Eagles and Howie Roseman are doing an absolutely fantastic job up there in Philly. But if the New Orleans Saints are trying to make waves, obviously starts with number one, beating the Indianapolis Colts. We'll talk about that more on Thursday's show. 992 says, better than that $1.1 million ticket you got from California, or that guy got from California. I hope it wasn't you. That doesn't seem like it's something I could ever end up paying. Funny guy says, let's scrutinize Derek Carr. I think Derek Carr's been heavily scrutinized all week, and Derek Carr wasn't speeding this week. He wasn't. He just wasn't. By the way, I did reach out to sources, which would be a very interesting topic in today's video. And I said, hey, when it comes to what's going around social media right now in Saints Nation, is there any issues in the locker room right now? Are there issues, or is it simply narrative and hype train? And I am quoting, because I was texting them, their response was capital LMAO, it's the media, always the media. So according to that person, everything that we're worried about, freaking about, does Derek Carr have the locker room? Does he not? Is Chris Olave a problem? Is Alvin Kamara an issue as a leader? None of that is a worry right now. It's the fan base who's going crazy. And as Nick Underhill said, this is a team that's 3-4 who believes that they are very close to being a winning team. Now, I want to be very clear that I think that this team has a lot that has to improve to trust in them as a winner. But I do think it was a breath of fresh air to reach out to a source inside the facility and have them tell me, yeah, that's all social media drama. And as the famous phrase goes, winning cures all. A lot of the problems that you're seeing, well, they exist, right? They exist on winning teams. It gets magnified when you're losing. It reminds me a lot of the 2016 season where the New Orleans Saints had a lot of talent. They found ways to lose football games, and there was frustration everywhere. But truthfully, the locker room wasn't really in that spot. I even reached out to my friend Ted Wynn, who, if y'all don't know who Ted is, I worked with him while I was at The Athletic. He covered the Las Vegas/Oakland Raiders, and he now actually covers both the Raiders and the 49ers for The Athletic. And what I specifically asked him was, hey, was there anything when he was in Vegas, when he was with the Raiders, that would lead you to believe that he would demand that certain players not get certain touches? So for those that don't know where this is coming from, I'm going to give a shout out. I'm not telling y'all to believe or whatever, but this is where it's happened on social media. The Block Party podcast with Ryan and Adam, according to one of their sources, part of Derek Carr coming into the team was that Taysom Hill was not going to be a quarterback, and he was not going to come in and take snaps from Derek Carr. That was apparently part of the agreement, according to their sources. Then Andrew Juge from the Saints Happy Hour podcast came by and said the opposite, and then we got a little bit of a Twitter war going against each other. So this led me to reach out to somebody who's covered him for many, many years in the facility over with the Raiders and say, hey, is there anything that you can think of that he had these issues, whether it was with him with the coaches, with the players? And he literally said, I can't say I remember him having any of those type of demands or issues before with the Raiders. So I'm not telling you who to believe, but I am saying that a byproduct of a team that is losing, a byproduct of a team that is struggling, is these narratives pop up. These narratives become, as Jose Ortiz in our chat says, a Twitter war. And again, I'm not saying that they're right or wrong. I consider myself a friend with Ryan. I feel like we have a good rapport, and I feel like we can talk about a few different things and bounce things off each other. And I don't think that they would tweet something that they don't believe and have not vetted themselves. At the same time, guys like Ralph and Andrew Hughes of the Saints Happy Hour podcast probably have some of their own sources of their own. So I simply don't know because I don't have anybody telling me that from inside the facility. So what I did is I reached out and got a little third-party view. I do want to say this real quick, and then I'll get to the comments section for what is a hot-button topic here. I said 3 things are true when it comes to teams in these situations. 1, crazy things happen behind closed doors that you typically wouldn't believe. Believe it or not, there are players, not just diva quarterbacks, who will say, I deserve to have X amount of snaps, and if I don't get them, there's going to be problems. That type of stuff does happen. It doesn't make it out into the media rooms very often, but those personalities exist. Number 2, more people have sources than you think. You don't just need a check mark or a media badge. Now, I've gotten to work as an official media guy, not only with Bleacher Report now, but with The Athletic. I've covered the Senior Bowl multiple years. I've worked with players. Y'all have seen me interview players and coaches. I've worked with coaches. Hell, I've had scouts on this channel breaking down film. But let me just go ahead and be honest. You don't have to do everything Rev Deuce has done to have sources in a team. Now, the proper way to vet a source and the proper way to vet a story is to have 3 to 4 sources verifying what you're saying. That way, if you're wrong, then you got a whole list of people who didn't tell you a truth. But don't necessarily brush aside people that aren't Nick Underhill, Ross Jackson, or whoever you find, and say that there's no way they could potentially have a source. And then finally, number 3, the smoke and mirrors. Sometimes it's just smoke and sometimes it's just clicks. Sometimes it's just all about driving in that sensationalism and taking advantage of it. And again, to be very clear, I'm not taking a side here. I actually think that Ryan and them would only say something that they truly believe. And they have had several reports that they've busted out that have been accurate in the past. So we'll just have to wait and see how it goes. Very, very curious. Anyway, there's your Saints Twitter drama of the day between the Derek Carr arrest and the Saints Twitter podcast war that has started off in 2023 between 2 well-known podcasts. Here we are today. Let's go grab some of the chat. Funny guy says, dude who covers the Raiders can't speak on that because the Raiders had no players like Taysom who would have taken snaps from a quarterback. It isn't even relatable. I disagree with that because if you're going to have those type of situations, you would still see him in a spot where maybe he wants to call certain plays. It's more of a mentality thing. You are right that there's no Taysom Hill style of player, but it's more about the level of control that Derek Carr will be trying to have. And the question was more directed is, did Derek Carr try to demand control when it calls certain play calls, tendencies, etc.? And that's not something they have. But you're right. There's not a one-to-one. Now, TJ does bring up there was a time where they had Marcus Mariota there, and Mariota certainly did get snaps with the Oakland Raiders. And hey, maybe that's part of, if what the Block Party podcast said is true, maybe that's part of what Derek Carr's referencing when he got here. Simply saying, we don't know. But it's still my job to tell you everything that's going on and try to give you context behind what is happening. Koji says, look at the bright side. Last time one of Carr's receivers got arrested for speeding, he took it into the playoffs. I love the very odd form of optimism that you're showing here tonight, Koji. Appreciate you. Love it. Love. Be kind. Olave arrest, right? Yeah, Olave was arrested for going 70 in a 35 zone. Now, obviously, he's out, made bail, and I don't expect this to be any type of jail time scenario, just simply a reckless operation of a motor vehicle. This is a misdemeanor, nothing really big. We'll see if this ends up being anything else in terms of like league-wide, but this is Olave's second speeding ticket after he got one back on August 21st. Maybe just like all the drama aside, maybe Olave just speeds and needs to slow the ass down. Like, gosh, damn it, dude. I get it. You like fast cars. Go to the track and drive really fast. Go do AutoX. Go do Formula One. Stop driving. Look, if you're going to drive fast, don't do it in freaking Kenner, New Orleans, not only because of the cops, but imagine hitting some of these damn potholes at 75 miles an hour. You're going to rip the axle off the front of your car, do about 3 flips, and end up under a bridge somewhere. This is not the safe place to be speeding. I'm just letting you know. We got built-in speed traps on every road, every block. Chill out. Chill out. So I don't think anything's happening, but I do think we've had a very wild, sensationalism, a bit of a Tuesday here, which is why I try to always focus on tape, y'all, because it's not really my game. I get that people enjoy it. I get that people like the impassionate pleas, man. And people get really excited about that. I mean, if you want any more evidence, check out my video after the show against the Jaguars. That's probably one of my most podcast of the week or the podcast of the month that people have wanted to watch. And yet that's not typically what we do here. So Mucky Mange says, who dat? Seems like Carmichael doesn't want to fit his players. Wants players to fit him. Seems like they thought Carr was going to be that. Wasn't brought in good to help. I would add that I think a lot of the Derek Carr coming to New Orleans thing wasn't on Carmichael. It was on Dennis Allen. I think Dennis Allen wanted that. And that means Pete Carmichael got stuck with a guy that maybe he didn't choose. Now, I want to be very clear. I stand on this 7 weeks in. I believe the number one problem on this team in terms of what's performing badly, like what's causing the offense to be bad, is Pete Carmichael. But I'll be very clear that right behind that is Derek Carr. I think Chris Olave's low effort is on the list, but it's much lower than Pete Carmichael and Derek Carr. But at the end of all this, while we're doing all this, this is just the hand of issues. You know the real issue? The person holding the hand, Dennis Allen. So right now we get issues with Pete Carmichael and his play calling. If y'all have been watching the film studies, that's clearly an issue. At the same time, Derek Carr clearly has missed some wide open opportunities that could have been successful. And for those who are watching and being objective, Chris Olave has also had some pretty immature moments. And all these things are contributing, as well as the, banged up makeshift offensive line, as well as, Jamal Williams not being a guy who necessarily really fits what New Orleans is doing. And even when he is here, they're not really using him in the role that the Detroit Lions use him to great success, which is inside that 10-yard line. And we don't have Jimmy Graham there. And the most infuriating question asked, y'all, did you hear the Dennis Allen press conference? The most infuriating question. Kat Terrell asked, hey, why are we not using Jimmy Graham in these packages? His quote, verbatim, was, well, that's a staff decision. Would somebody do me a huge favor and Google the New Orleans Saints coaching staff real quick? Hell, I'll do it for you. If you Google New Orleans Saints coaching staff, you'll be shocked what comes up at the very top. Holy shit, it's Dennis Allen. Who would have thought? It's a staff decision. Bro, you're the top of the staff. What? So we get into this point where the New Orleans in the weeds, and at some point, somebody has got to hold someone accountable, right? We got to have some level of accountability here in New Orleans. And I think it goes to the top. I think Ms. Gale needs to be holding Mickey Loomis accountable. I think Mickey Loomis needs to be holding Dennis Allen accountable. And I know there's a lot of frustration towards Mickey Loomis. I'm not saying they're not always justified, but hell, when I look at the Derek Carr contract, I go, wow, Mickey Loomis did a good thing. Why do I think that? Because Dennis Allen clearly wanted Derek Carr. And everybody in chat can probably agree with that, right? Funny guy, kid, who dat, Jose, Cross, Joseph. Y'all probably agree that Dennis Allen wanted Derek Carr. We can agree on that foundational point for the house I'm trying to build. So what Mickey Loomis did is he signed Derek Carr to a deal that's essentially a 3-year deal where they can get out in as early as 2 years. Why do I say that? Derek Carr's dead cap number in year 2 is about $58 million in year 2. In year 3, it drops to $17 million. And after year 3, so if Derek Carr played 3 years in New Orleans, there's an out, gone, bye, no more. No more Derek Carr. So Mickey Loomis gave him what he wanted. He gave Dennis Allen the quarterback he said he needed to be successful, but he didn't sign a contract that made it to where he's here for 6 years. Like the absolute max that Pete Carmichael, and I guess Pete Carmichael could be gone earlier, but the max that Derek Carr is going to be in New Orleans if he continues to play poorly is 2 years. And then after that, New Orleans will move on from him. So I actually give Mickey Loomis a little credit there. Dennis Allen was adamant he needed his guy. Well, Mickey Loomis found a way to get his guy, and they didn't break the bank for it. So I appreciate that. But either way, Saints fans, things are not going good right now. It's no bueno, right? Right now, the New Orleans Saints are struggling. And I don't care. I know we're supposed to be positive about being 3-4, but I think the 3-4 is a little misleading. Why do I think the 3-4 is a little misleading? Well, let me go ahead and give you some stats you didn't want to hear on this Tuesday, but it's okay because when I tell you these stats, you're at least going to know that I'm being fair and honest, and I'm not just making crap up, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up your asses. In 1998, the New Orleans Saints averaged, with Mike Ditka as quarterback, with Mike Ditka as head coach and Danny Abramowitz as the offensive coordinator, Billy Joe Tolliver at quarterback, Kerry Collins at quarterback, Lamar Smith at running back, Sean Dawkins, Cam Cleveland, Keith Poole, Andre Hastings. They averaged 19 points a game. Your 2023 New Orleans Saints, led by Dennis Allen, Pete Carmichael at OC, Derek Carr at quarterback, Alvin Kamara at running back, Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and Taysom Hill, are averaging 19 points a game. For those curious, the 98 New Orleans Saints finished 6-10. So all this rambling I've kind of done beside, the Saints roster clearly is too talented to be doing what they are right now. And TJ, yes, Danny Abramowitz, the first New Orleans Saint wide receiver to be a All-Pro, actually was the offensive coordinator in the late 90s under Mike Ditka. So all this to be said, I truly am still at the point, I don't believe that if you make any roster changes, this team changes. The only way you can make this roster just suddenly improve is if somehow you got Patrick Mahomes, somehow you got Joe Burrow, somehow you got Josh Allen, somehow you got Lamar Jackson. It's got to change at the coaching level for this team to get better. Sorry, I rambled a little bit here. It's been a little bit, it's an interesting Tuesday because I'm not used to the rumor mill hitting as hard as it has. It's been really odd, right? It's been kind of crazy. When I guess that Saints are on the way to the bottom 5 roster with an aging defense, overpaid quarterback. Saints are bound to crash in the next year, and we're seeing the effect of that. Now, funny guy, that I strongly disagree with. I don't think you're seeing at all the signs of a team crashing. The New Orleans Saints have been able to manage the cap for 20 years. They're doing quite well. And as I said, the Derek Carr contract is actually a very well-written contract for how the New Orleans Saints run business. I will agree with you that Cameron Jordan and Demario Davis are aging veterans, as is Honey Badger. And those are things that you can worry about and look to the future. But you also do have up-and-coming guys who are looking good. Brian Brzee, Adebo. You've also got Alante Taylor. I am quietly excited about Bowden at safety. Pete Warner. I will say that Pete Warner, I don't think he's been as good this year. But, I mean, the point I'm making is I think that defense has got a lot of young guys that are raising up. Oh, let us not forget Carl Granderson. But offensive side, yeah, same thing. You got Chris Olave. Just need him to be better. You got Rashid Shaheed, Kendre Miller. I think that this team has the power on the roster continue to get better. But you got to get better at coaching. And if you're ready to start picketing, and I'm surprised that nobody said it. Can y'all believe that nobody in Saints Nation has ever said this? I'm not being facetious at all. Nobody said that Dennis Allen should be fired. Can y'all believe that? Nobody believes Dennis Allen should be fired. It's wild. Pete Carmichael, Dennis Allen, whatever changes you make, though, New Orleans Saints do have a good roster for years to come, and I trust Mickey Loomis, Kai Harley, in the cap management situation, but the coaching simply hasn't worked out. Orgy, good to see you, says, can you go back over the rumors? I'm just tuning in. We start talking about the Derek Carr contract. Absolutely. The quick rumor is simply this. There was a rumor put out by the Saints Block Party podcast. They have had sources and had some actual statements done in the past in terms of like they broke some news that part of Derek Carr's agreement to come to New Orleans was that Dennis Allen was not going to give Taysom Hill certain shots at quarterback, that it was going to be Derek Carr's show. Now, on the opposite side of that, Andrew Juge from the Saints Happy Hour podcast came through and said, well, his source says that's bullshit, and that never happened. Now, I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm simply letting you know what's going on. And I think that there are going to be people who believe one way or the other based on how things have been lately. And I understand that logic. I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm simply pushing that along. I do think it's interesting that this pops up. And I'm a firm believer in one thing: winning cures all. If the New Orleans Saints can return to their winning ways, none of this honestly matters. It really doesn't. It doesn't matter if Taysom Hill wants to throw a pass. And it doesn't matter if Derek Carr doesn't want it to, as long as the Saints are winning. When the Saints are losing, then it matters. So believe what you will, right? I say take everything in context. It's very clear if you've paid attention to the post-game conferences and the media meetups, everything, that we've had multiple times where Derek Carr is like, yeah, I want Taysom to throw me a touchdown pass. And that exists. You know, it all comes down to context. Hemi says, when Mr. Benson was alive, he had one of those, had one-on-ones with Sean Payton, Mickey Loomis, to speak with him. Where's Miss Gail at? I know she sees how this team is performing. This brings up a great point. One thing that I have as a complaint about Miss Gail Benson, now I'm not trash talking Miss Gail. I think Miss Gail is amazing. And be very clear, you would not have a New Orleans Saints team in New Orleans without Gail Benson. You would not have a New Orleans Pelicans team in New Orleans without Gail Benson. So before anybody thinks I'm about to shit talk Gail Benson, you are out of your mind. I am not going to trash talk Miss Gail Benson. But what I will say is she is a passive owner. She's very hands-off. I do think that she needs to get more involved. Not only is it her money, it is her city. It is her culture. It is her team. She needs to go to Mickey Loomis and say, something's not working right. We need to get this sorted out. Now, knowing Miss Gail, she's going to do it in the sweetest, most proper, postulate, chest out, great cup of tea, pinkies extended way that could possibly be done. But something has to be done to hold everybody accountable, because at the end of the day, you could be listening to this podcast and you just hate Derek Carr. Can't stand him. Derek Carr is trash. You could hate Jameis Winston. Can't stand him. Jameis Winston is trash. I don't honestly care what your opinion is on either one of those. Why? Because I believe the problem with the New Orleans Saints is above those issues. I'm not saying that Derek Carr hasn't struggled. He has. Back in September, I was putting out videos talking about pull the trigger. I was calling out Derek Carr for missing plays. I did the same thing for Jameis Winston. But I think the root of the issue here, where the virus is growing and festering, and where that cancer has to have that tumor removed, is in the coaching staff. And until accountability is held up at the top end, it's tough to expect things to get better. And that isn't making an excuse for Derek Carr's bad play, or Olave taking a play off, or Andres Pete having to play left tackle against Josh Allen, or the fact that Jamal Williams missed time, or that Jake Hayner apparently was eating, Kobe beef from China that secretly had PEDs in it. None of these things cover all that. I'm simply a firm believer that rolls downhill, and you got to fix the problems up at the top. And when Sean Payton was here, you can guarantee one thing: that level was set. There were problems along the offense and defensive times, but there were no issues in the hierarchy. There was respect in the organization, and there was respect from top to bottom, especially when Mr. B was here. So that's what this New Orleans Saints, I feel like, is missing. Accountability in the coaching side, and to an extent, accountability in the front office. Cran says Sean Payton had awful defense for years and was given a pass. Only difference is Payton had a Hall of Fame quarterback to make up for it, and Dennis doesn't. Look, the dirty truth of the NFL is Hall of Fame quarterbacks make up for a lot. Like a lot. Because they're Hall of Fame quarterbacks. So, yeah. Yeah, that kind of makes up for quite a bit when you have a Hall of Fame quarterback. You know, I mean, you're right. I'm just saying. You win a Super Bowl and you got a Hall of Fame quarterback, you get a little bit of leeway. Dennis Allen, career, and I hate the career record. I'm going to give you his New Orleans record. He is 10-14. That's 41.7% wins in 2 seasons so far with the New Orleans Saints. Not good enough. It's not. It's absolutely not good enough. So, there you go. Antonio says, Carr not a Hall of Fame quarterback? You got me, Antonio. You got me. He is. Absolutely. Absolutely. Christopher says, this is looking like the Mike Ditka and Jim Haslett culture. Terrible. The only difference is we had a better talent than they did back then. At least Sean got rid of the losing culture, and it seems like it's back. I'm not ready to, dive straight in that is back all the way, but I will tell you there are problems. I will tell you these are the things that you have to be careful about if you're this team, because it can kind of snowball on you and it can get worse. Real quick before we continue, we're going to get more questions and comments from you out there in the chat. But hey, if you want to support the channel, check out our merch store. It's revduce.com. We've got the flyest hats. We've got the dopest mugs, t-shirts. And hey, if you've been watching the film studies lately and you don't have a pull the trigger t-shirt, do you even love the podcast? We try to teach you the game, entertain you on the game, and give you a voice, because I promise you, we send those questions in. Yes, believe it or not, I will poke people about certain questions I believe need to get asked. So get you a hoodie. Winter's coming up. The hoodies are thick, very well made, and very, very nice. Pick you up one there. Get you some of the hats like I wear, or just get you a mug to sip your coffee at your desk, and it's got pull the trigger right on it. If you learn anything, you better know what the Yankee concept is, because gosh, the New Orleans Saints use it a lot, so I might as well teach it to you. Support your podcast. Orgy says, even Peyton got away with it for a few years. I believe in player-led accountability. Leadership is seriously lacking from the coaching department. 0 answers. I would agree. This is where I also give credit to, though, Alvin Kamara. I think Alvin Kamara has done a fantastic job stepping up as a leader this year and really trying to insert himself as that guy. I really do appreciate what he's been doing in that regard. I really do. Jeff says 10 wins came from Sean's roster. Possibly, Joseph, possibly. But I don't want to be too negative. Don't want to be too negative. Bim, I'm glad you enjoy the merch. Remember, content creators like myself, I put out a lot of tape. I put a lot of film. I put a lot of hours. I can only do that with supporters like yourself. And if you really want to go above and beyond, y'all, there is a members-only area of my website where you can literally support for a couple dollars a month, and that helps me make more content. Yeah, hey, it's another podcaster plugging, but guess what? I'm not just plugging it so that you can listen to a podcast, which you can do already. Why am I plugging it? I'm plugging it so that you can support me, get more film study, get more podcasts, and get more answers, because I'm accessible and I appreciate all of you. Dudes, have you ever met Mrs. Benson? Great question, Giovanni. I've never actually met Mrs. Gale. I never got an opportunity to meet her. I've been around her, so like there'll be events that happen and Miss Gale's there, but I never met Miss Gale. And I'll admit that when I was, really pushing the scouting thing, when I was considering making scouting a career, and New Orleans was the goal to work for New Orleans, when I was considering that, my goal was like Mickey Loomis and working with the scouting department. So I've had the scouting guys know me, and I've had, recognition from people inside the facility, but never Mrs. Gale. And I'll be honest, I'd probably be a little bit too fanboy. I could only do nothing but approach Mrs. Gale with respect. And I don't know if I'd even want to talk ball. I feel like she's in a level of stratosphere that I'm not ready to approach yet. I'm just not ready for it. So Chris says we're about to play the Colts. They put up 38 points with Gardner Minshew. We can't even score, especially in the red zone. Chris, we're going to cover a lot of that Thursday. I do believe that the New Orleans Saints can win this game. I feel like we just beat the best guy or just lost to the best in the division. Just lost to it. I think we can win. But we got to see, right? You got to win the games that presented to you. Absolutely have to win the games. How much does Dennis Lauscha have to do with the actual decisions? Like what top level they actually involved, basically. I don't think Dennis Lauscha has anything to do with terms of game day and roster decision, which is kind of what we are discussing right now. Absolutely nothing for that. Absolutely nothing for that. So let's continue on. What happened to Nico Lalos? Nico Lalos is, I believe, still, let me double check, on the Saints roster down the practice squad. I know he had popped in. Let's see if he's still there. So our practice squad is currently Jonathan Abram, Cameron Dantzler Sr., Cameron Irving, who y'all just saw, Mark Evans, Jack Heflin, Phelan Hicks, Tommy Hudson, Michael Jacobson, Jonte Kirkland, Tommy Kramer, Nico Lalos is still on the practice squad, Jordan Mims, Anthony Orgy, Jalen Smith, and Daniel Sorensen. So those are the names currently on the practice squad for the New Orleans Saints there, Dre. There you go. There you go. So what else you got? She's human. She's not special. I mean, she is human, but she is very special. I mean, she is one of the most amazing people to ever grace the city, in my opinion. She's the reason that the New Orleans Saints stayed. She talked Tom Benson out of moving them. She invested heavily in the Pelicans. I will be forever grateful to the impact that Mrs. Gale has had in this city. I just absolutely will. The Antonio, thank you so much for the support. Can you explain why a 9-year quarterback is immediately checking down on 3-step drops without going through progressions? He's scared, maybe. Could be hearing footsteps. I mean, the offensive line has not played well, but I'll just go shoot it what it is. And I say this in the film studies. He's not playing well, right? You expect him to make certain throws, and he's not even attempting some of those throws. And I don't think it's wrong to call those guys out, Antonio. I appreciate you bringing up, in fact. You know, I think that Derek Carr, and I've always said this is a mid-tier quarterback. I do think that he can play better than what he has done so far. Will he? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Do I think that he can be better? I honest to God do. I really do think that he can be better than what we've seen so far. We have seen him have better games. You know, this game was the worst game he's had as a Saint. And if you're going by film, and I put that film on YouTube, you can tell that he doesn't look absolutely bottom, of the league in other games, right? That doesn't mean that he's top tier, but this was his worst. So we're judging him off his worst performance, and you got to hope that he will improve. And not to make the Jameis Winston fans mad, I've always said, the New Orleans Saints are not going to go backwards, right? They didn't sign and go get Derek Carr, and we can call that hubris, we can call that pride. The New Orleans Saints are not going to go back to Jameis Winston. I said this on TJ's podcast. If y'all haven't checked out State of the Saints podcast, I just don't believe that New Orleans is going to go, bam, we spent $100 and something million, we screwed up, let's go give Jameis another shot. It's just not going to happen. I mean, the next quarterback they give a shot to is Jake Haener. If the season just really falls apart, end of the season, they're not going to put in Jameis to get reps. They're going to put in Jake Haener. So you've got to work with what you got, see if you can make it better. And we'll see. I will admit, though, that as we get more and more coming out of New Orleans where the team and the players are discussing some of these things going on, it just seems a little rough. It does. It just absolutely seems a little rough. So, is what it is. What I'm saying, I love Winston, but we aren't seeing him, unfortunately. Yeah, and people have taken that as me dogging Winston. I'm not trying to dog Winston. I just understand what the game is going to do, because the New Orleans Saints are looking for their quarterback of the future. They've made very clear Jameis Winston is not their quarterback of the future. I'm not saying that in a way of I don't believe in Jameis Winston. I've been very vocal. I don't believe Jameis Winston got the shot that he truly deserved in New Orleans, and I don't believe that. I really don't think he did. And there will be people who comment on this podcast after the fact. By the way, 150 people watching live right now. Hit the like button. helps out the channel. And if you haven't already, I am doing more short form content, so check that out here on the channel. Thanks to a couple people who are helping out. I just don't believe that they're ever going to walk back. So that means that if they make a change at some point, let's say the Saints have gone, let's just say the Saints go 5-9, right? Well, playoffs are basically gone, but you've still got a few games left. Jake Hayner's going to be the guy that I would say throw out there, not Jameis Winston. So we'll just kind of see what ends up happening. I do hope the best. I was actually talking to a college coach a couple months ago, and he was like, hey, wouldn't shock me if Jameis Winston finds a way to get onto another team and potentially start. And for those going, well, there's no way that anybody would want Jameis Winston. Trevor Siemian is on a team right now. You didn't know that, did you? You didn't. Did you know that Trevor Siemian is on a football team right now? Former starter Trevor Siemian is currently with the New York Jets. So I think Jameis Winston, whether he's in New Orleans or somewhere else, is going to have a shot to try to fight for position in this league. I just don't think that New Orleans is going to give him that shot. I don't think that New Orleans is a bad place for him, and I love having him as that backup for this team. But I really don't feel like New Orleans is going to ever give him a chance to be that starter here. I just really don't. Is that wrong of them? You can definitely make that argument. I just don't think it's going to ever happen. We'll see. Bam says, I don't believe Pete Carmichael knows how to use play action passing to slow down the blitz. I agree. I do not feel like they are effective in play action, nor do I feel like they're effective in the motion sets they use to try to open things up. I think there's several things that they struggle with. I really, really do. But the narrative will be Jameis is so bad that Hayner is player. I'll say this, Jay. I can't control media narratives. I truly try to be as objective as possible and say what I believe with my chest. I will never say that Jake Hayner is getting a start because he's better than Jameis Winston right now. I'll say that he's getting a start because they're trying to develop what they hope is a quarterback of the future. I really do wish the best and want the best for Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston is the most unintentionally funny guy that I've ever seen in the league. And honestly, he's just a dude I want to root for. I hope good things happen to him in his life, whatever those things are. But I just don't feel like New Orleans is going to give him that shot. And that just is what it is. It is what it is. Play action wouldn't help when their front four can't stop the run. The thing is, Beehive, the effectiveness of the run game doesn't affect the effectiveness of play action. The consistency of the run game does. It's like if you use the running game, even if it's not very good, play action is effective. If you don't use the run game and then use play action, then it's not effective. Hicks Pony says, what realistic trade assets do we have? I'll be honest, Bleacher Report's been bugging me about this because they want me to do a video on, let me look for you. I think they want me to do a video on the 30th about trades. I honestly, God, don't think there's any trade the New Orleans Saints can make to make them better, nor are the Saints going to be willing to get rid of anything unless this Chris Olave thing is bigger than I think it is. And I'm not trying to be dramatic. Unless they really feel like this Chris Olave thing is a thorn in their side, that'd be the only thing. But I don't see any realistic trade available. The only position the Saints really need is like a good left tackle. Well, guess what? There's about 10 good left tackles in the entire NFL. And guess what? Those teams aren't really moving off of them. You can maybe try to say, hey, Quentin Nelson, get a little bit long in the tooth. He's had a couple of injuries here and there. Can we grab Quentin Nelson for left guard? That's not really realistic. And the only player that the New Orleans Saints have that probably has any trade value is Chris Olave. And I don't think the New Orleans Saints want to get rid of him. So that's a really tough thing. I've actually been talking to my editors at Bleacher Report about how do we handle this one because I really don't know a realistic answer to make it good. By the way, I do want to remind y'all, I sent out some thank yous. If anybody buys merch from the merch store, you get personalized thank yous from my account. I sent out a video thank you to everybody. And just to remind y'all, I sent out a couple today. So if you haven't already, pick you up some New Orleans Saints merch. I do put out thank yous every single time that I see them. So appreciate y'all loving the channel. And if y'all have any ideas for new t-shirts, Hit me up. T says Lattimore has value. I think Lattimore has got lower value than the New Orleans Saints to be willing to trade with. I really do. I think he has lower value than be willing to trade with. Hey, Pokey, good to see you. Pokey's from our gaming side. Good to see you, Miss Pokey. Hope you're having a fantastic evening. For me, the priority should be keeping the players that retain the culture we want and had with Peyton. Good with rebuild anywhere else. Fair enough, Monkey. I feel that. I just don't know how feasible it is. I really don't. Do you think the Saints will draft a quarterback in the first round next year, like Penix or Jaden Daniels, if Derek Carr continues to be bad? Peyton, I'm about to tell you the answer you don't want to hear. Nope. I know you don't want to hear that answer, but no, I don't believe that. As of right now, October 24th, 2023, nope, I do not believe so. I truly don't. I'm sorry to say that, but I don't. Now, is there a potential that if a quarterback falls and they end up with one of those early picks? So what we can actually do right now, if you go to NFL, was it Draft Tankathon, something like that, we can look at the NFL draft order as it sits right now. So this is as it is at this very moment, based on rankings for this moment. So as you can see right here, the New Orleans Saints are the 10th overall pick. At the moment, they have pick number 10. Denver just won, which sucks for us, but that means that we have an early second round pick in Denver. Then we don't pick again to the 4th. We have 3 5th. That's assuming we get 2 compensation picks for the 5th round, a 6th, and then we got Philly's 7th. So as of right now, the New Orleans Saints would draft 10th and 35. Those are our only picks in the top 50. And it would be really shocking to see that turn into anything big. Now, the Carolina Panthers, of course, own pick number 1. If you're hoping for anything crazy and wild to happen, you can hope that the New Orleans Saints have some losing happening over by Green Bay so we can try to grab their pick, but we'll wait and see. They have our 3rd round pick, as you can see, and they are picking currently number 4. Well, if they just start bombing out, it helps our 2nd pick. And if we can get that down to, 33-ish, that means we're having the 1st pick in the 2nd round, which could be kind of nice. Maybe you can package some of these picks to get into the 3rd. But right now, the New Orleans Saints are kind of lacking in the pick department. No, I do not think the New Orleans Saints are going to go after a quarterback there. Crayons, thank you so much for supporting the channel. Is Derek Carr playing poorly because he's still hurt, or is it all mental? I think it's a combination of both. I think it'd be very disingenuous to say that Derek Carr is playing poorly based solely on the injury. I don't think that is very fair, nor it's accurate. So I'm not going to lie to you and say that's the reason, okay? I think Derek Carr is just playing bad right now. And you got to hope that Derek Carr gets better with a combination of his own better play as well as getting better by having better play calling. I just don't think it's fair to blame it on the shoulder, guys. I just really don't. Can you speak on what a player's relationship would be like with the owner of the team? I know Jerry Jones has pretty good communication with his players. Depends on the owner, Giovanni. The New Orleans Saints have a very hands-off owner in Miss Gail Benson. Jerry Jones is essentially the general manager. He has a very hands-on relationship with his players. So it's 2 very different scenarios, but generally speaking, I think it can vary city to city. But great question, just not one that I can provide a ton of insight on like I could a scouting question. Monk says, we do love the trade up and completely possible that both the Bears and the Cardinals have 2 top 10s. And we have a top 10. It's possible, but you're also assuming the Saints lose out. And y'all don't want to hear this conversation either. But in terms of strength of schedule, let's go ahead and show it to you. Y'all ready to see the strength of schedule? Because y'all aren't ready for it, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. So let me go ahead and grab it. Your New Orleans Saints, here's what you got coming up. You ready? Well, too damn bad. You're going to get it anyway. Your New Orleans Saints. Let me go grab them right over here. Here's your New Orleans Saints schedule. You've got the Colts. I'm sorry, y'all. That's a very winnable game. You got the Bears. I'm sorry, y'all. That's a very winnable game. You got the Vikings. I think the Vikings win. But you got the Falcons. Very winnable game. You got the Detroit Lions. That's That's a tough one. That's a tough one. You got the Carolina Panthers. That's a very winnable game. Ooh, scroll it up a little bit more for you. You got the Rams and the Giants and the Bucks and the those are all very winnable games. You don't want to hear it right now. Nobody wants to hear that right now. Like, nobody wants to hear that these are winnable games, but they are. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be that guy. They are literally winnable games. So I'll be surprised if the Saints end up as a top 10 pick. What I think is more likely, the Saints win just enough to annoy the fire out of y'all as of where they are right now. And they end up being like, pick 16, right in the middle, where like you're not good enough to have made the playoffs, but you're not good enough to be getting a top end roster pick. So, yay. What happens if DA gets fired? The new coach doesn't want Derek Carr. Well, truthfully, 992, he's kind of stuck. You're not getting rid of Derek Carr after next year. But that doesn't mean that you can't try to draft a replacement, have Derek Carr be a bridge quarterback for that first year, sit your rookie quarterback, and then move on to the next thing. So we'll see what ends up happening. Y'all, we're going to wrap the show. Remember, we'll be back Thursday so we can recap and preview the Indianapolis Colts game. Appreciate every single one of you. You're all amazing. Thank you for supporting the channel. One more time, if you do want to support the channel, come check out our Saints podcast and check out our lovable merch. We got the Who Dat Confessional t-shirt merch, the Pull the Trigger merch. If you have any ideas for merch that you would like to see, I'll make up just about anything if y'all want to rock it, and I'll wear it too. Who Dat, God bless. I love every single one of you. Join the Discord. Hit me up on Twitter at RevDeuceWyndham. I love you. And then Antonio says that Dennis Allen is fired. He'll be hired by Sean as the DC in Denver. I'll be honest. If he does that, Denver might win a Super Bowl. Who Dat, God bless. Catch you on the next one. Appreciate every single one of you. I'm out.